Hello everyone and welcome back to Coding Monk once again. So in this video we are going to see how we can create the dialog boxes when we click on the block and delete button, and also we are going to see how we can switch between different tabs. Like in the previous video we learned how to create this contact section. Now we are going to see how we can view this shared messages and build this tabs here inside that for media, links and docs. And after that we are also going to explore how we can build this start messages section here. So let's get started right away. In the previous part I showed you how we can set up our Redux store, and inside that we learned how to manage this state. So we have this property sidebar inside the app. okay and it is containing basically two properties, just like we defined whether this is open or not and what is the type. The type can be either contact, shared messages or start messages. So as you can see in the design, in the Figma file that I have shared, we are going to create this start messages section and also this shared messages section. So shared messages will basically contain three things: media, links and docs that are shared between two persons or a group. So with that understanding, let's now begin building it. In the previous video we created this contact component inside our components folder. Now we are going to create another file here which is going to be known as shared messages. So shared messages.js, and then let's just create a functional component here with that name. And now the first thing that we need is how we are going to actually switch between different tabs. Like if I press on this 401, this shared messages section, that means media, links and docs, then I need to switch to this shared messages component. That means in place of this contact info, shared messages should be rendered. For that purpose we are maintaining this state, which is called type. So we are going to change this type or update this type to shared messages. So for that you first of all need to move inside the general app component. And then here we are going to place a condition. Like we are going to first check what is the type of sidebar, and then accordingly we are going to render either contact component or shared messages or start messages. So since we are already inside JavaScript context, so I'm just going to create an IFI here. So IFI is basically an immediately invoked function expression. So we are going to execute some code inside this JavaScript context. So I'm going to first of all write a switch case here, in which we will be comparing the type and accordingly going to render different type of component. So I'm just going to check the type of sidebar. And what are the possible values. As I have explained in the previous part, it can be either contact, start, or it can also be shared. So this is simple. Now what we need to do here is we need to return the JSX that we want to render in this case. So if the case is contact, then we want to render the contact component. So I'm just going to write it like this: we need to return it. And similarly we are also going to render this shared messages component when the type is shared. So let's also use this component shared messages. So I'm going to import it here by the name of shared messages. As you can see, it's going to come from components folder. Now just like this you need to write it here, and then you can remove this break statement because we have written this return keyword here. Now you can save it, and then we are going to see what we get. And currently you can only see this contact info coming up, and that's because right now the type in our Redux store is still contact. So we need to find a way to update this type value. And for that, in the previous lecture I have explained you how we can do that. So we have created this update sidebar thunk action in the previous video. So we are going to dispatch it when somebody clicks on this button here. And we are going to pass it a value of shared in its payload, and that is going to do the job for us. So it's pretty simple. So let's now find that button here. So I'm just going to search it by the text 401, and this is the button on which we want to enable this on click listener. Okay, so I'm just going to write this on click prop here, and then to it we can pass a function, and inside that we are actually going to dispatch that thunk action. So we already have this dispatch here, okay, at the top, so we can just use that here. So let's just write dispatch, and then we can pass here update sidebar type, which is going to come from redux folder. Inside that we have the slices folder and then app. Okay, so we have imported it, and now as you can see we need to pass it the type, which will be further passed down to this action update sidebar type as a payload. Okay, so now I can just write here the type which is actually acceptable, and there are only three values: contact, start and shared, and in this case it is going to be shared. Okay, and we are also going to implement a similar on click functionality on this start messages arrow icon. Okay, so let's just also get this done. So I'm going to copy this on click functionality from here, and then you can see we have this start messages here, and then there is the icon button. Okay, caret right or this arrow right icon, and we just want that on click functionality to be implemented on this icon button. So I'm going to paste that on click code that I just copied from the above, and then we can just change the value of type here to start. Okay, and this is pretty simple. Now you can see we have implemented that functionality as well. So let's now try clicking on this button, media links and docs. So you can see when I click on that, then I am moving to this shared messages component, and now it's working. So we just need to focus upon this shared messages component. Okay, and we need to actually brainstorm how we can render this type of component and how we can switch between different tabs. So first of all, let's worry about this header part. Okay, and how we are going to go back. So for that we can just use the code that we have written inside this contact component. Okay, the header part is going to remain the same, so we are just going to need this box here as well. Okay, inside this shared messages, so I'm just going to copy and paste it. Okay, just like this you can also do it. So let's just import this box component from the material UI library. Okay, and then again we are going to use this stack again. So I'm just also going to take it from there. Let's also import this stack. Okay, then this is the header part that is going to be common between all those components. Okay, so let's just get this. Okay, and now I'm going to paste it over here. So as you can see we need a couple of things here. Okay, we are going to actually change the content of it. Okay, so let's just first get this theme here. So as you already know, we can get theme anywhere inside our app. Okay, using this use theme hook, which is provided by material UI, and we are again going to import it from material UI's styles module. Okay, just like this you can also import this use theme and call it to get the theme. Now we are also going to need this typography icon button. Okay, let's just import it right here. Okay, from the material UI library. And now we need this dispatch functionality, because again we need to change or update the type. Okay, so for that we are going to write here const dispatch is equal to use dispatch, and you already know this use dispatch is going to come from react-redux library. Okay, so let's just call it like this, and now we need to update the thunk action here. So we are going to actually call update sidebar type. Okay, and then since we need to go back, okay, from the shared messages, okay, to this contact, so I'm going to again set the type to contact. Okay, and this is going to do the job for us. And let's also get this X icon, okay, from the fast for react library. And now I'm going to save this. Okay, let's save all the changes that we have just made. And now if I click on this cross button, then you can see I am navigated back to the contact info component. This is actually the functionality that we want. So we are just now going to make a few changes to the UI. First of all, we don't want this X here, okay? We want this arrow right icon, and also we don't want this heading. We are going to change it to something else like shared messages. So let's just make these updates here, okay? So the first thing that we are going to do is to place this icon button above the typography, and then I'm going to remove this justify content because we don't want these things to be separated. We are just going to keep some spacing between them, okay? So let's just save this, and now I'm again going to view this component, and you can see we just need to change this to arrow left icon, okay? And we also need to update this title. So I'm going to first of all write here shared messages. Let's also change it to title case, okay? Shared messages. And then we are going to need this icon caret left, okay, which is going to again come from pause for react. Let's save this, and now you can see we have a much better header, okay, and we are able to switch between tabs. So let's now get on to how we can build this toggle functionality here, okay, these different tabs. So for that, we have a built-in component from Material UI, okay? So let me just show it to you. You can visit MUI.com, okay? And then you need to click on the search bar, and you can type tabs, and it is going to take you to this page where you can see we can build this tab functionality very easily, okay? So we are just going to use this center tab component. So I'm going to expand its code, and you can see we can use this component here, okay? And we are also going to define this set state, okay, so that we can manage which tab is currently active. And for that, to toggle between different tabs, we are also going to need this handle change function. Before doing that, we are going to need this body stack, okay? So let's get this body stack first of all. So I'm going to copy it from the contact component that we created in the previous video, okay? Let's just also complete this stack, and now we, as you can see, we already have that scrolling functionality, that padding spacing, okay, and everything set it up for us. So we can just start by building these tabs, okay? So I'm just going to copy these tabs here. So I'm just going to copy these tabs from here, okay? And we can actually place it above the body, because as you can see in our design, the body is going to change, okay? That means the content will be different for each tab, okay? But this tab is actually going to remain the common thing between all of these, so it needs to be outside this body, okay? Let's now get this tabs and tab component from Material UI. So I'm going to go at the top of my file and then import these components tabs and tab, okay, from Material UI. And then we can manage this value and handle change, okay, just like as shown in this MUI example, okay? So we can manage that state and also define this handle change before the return keyword. Now if I save this, okay, and if you go back to your chat app, now you can see we have these nice tabs, okay, and we are able to switch between these. So there is one more thing, we are going to need some padding from the top and also from the horizontal direction. So let's just get it done. So I'm going to use this SX prop here to give it some styling. Then I'm going to give it px, that means padding in x direction of 2, and padding from top, okay, also 2. Let's save this. There is one more thing, we need to update the text of these buttons, okay? So let's just get this done. So as you can see in our design, we are going to need media, links and docs, okay? So I'm going to write here just that media, okay, then links and docs. Let's save this, and you see we get these tabs. In the body section, we are going to actually render 3 different things based on what is the current value of this value that we have defined in our components state. So let's just write some JavaScript here, okay? So for that we are going to need this curly bracket here. Then I'm going to again define an ify, okay, immediately invoke function expression, okay, because I'm going to need to write a switch statement here, okay? So let's just use this switch again, and we are actually going to use the value of this value state that we have defined, okay? If the value is 0. Okay, as you can see, the value is a integer value. Okay, that means it is going to be 0, 1 and 2. 0 for media, 1 for links and 2 for docs. So we are going to check if the case is 0. Okay, then we are going to actually render our images that are shared or media, basically images, videos. And after that, if the case is 1, then we are going to render shared links, otherwise shared docs. Okay, so let's just change this case from 0 to 1 and 2. And now also let's update this. So we are going to render links here and docs in this case. So let's just focus on how to render these images first. So as you can see, we are going to need this type of UI here. So for this, we are going to use a component from Material UI which is known as grid. It is going to basically allow us align these items in a grid fashion. Okay, so as you can see in the Material UI documentation, if you search for grid, okay, then you will be able to see how we can use this to build flexible UI. Okay, so you can just use a parent grid and give it this prop of container to denote that it is the parent container, okay, or parent grid, which is going to have several children. Now you can define this again, this grid component, but this time with this item prop, and this is going to rendered as the child of the parent grid. Okay, so let's just do that right here. So we are going to use this grid component from Material UI. Okay, then I'm going to give this prop of container. Okay, and then a spacing of 2, so it can also take a spacing, and this spacing will be visible between its children. And now we need to actually render some images here. So for that, I'm just going to use again a dummy array, okay, to render several images here. So I am using this array of length 7 here, and then we are going to just map over it. Okay, we will be taking each element from it, and for each element we are going to render a grid item. Okay, and this grid item is basically going to contain the image that we want to render. Okay, so let's just pass this prop of item here. Okay, and we also need to define for all the screen sizes starting from extra small, it is going to take 4 out of 12 space, that means 1/3. Okay, just like in our design. Okay, that means 1/3 of the total width available, that is 4 out of 12. Okay, now we are going to use this image tag from HTML. Okay, then we just need to provide some source here and also the alt attribute. As you already know, we are going to use again this faker library. Okay, then we can just write name dot full name, and this is just going to provide us with a fake full name here. And we can also use the same thing here. We can just write faker dot image, and then we can use an avatar image here. Okay, so let's just save it. As you can see, nothing is actually visible here right now, and that is because we have again missed that return keyword. And if we do not add this return keyword, then we are not actually returning any JSX to be rendered. Okay, so we need to add this return keyword here first of all. Okay, then let's save it, and you can see that media is still not visible, and that is because we are getting a warning here since we are not returning anything from this map. So we also need to add this return keyword before this grid here. Okay, at this line. So let's now save this, and again we are going to see what we get. And this time we get our media, and this is looking pretty nice. Okay, so we are going to make few changes to it later on, but for now it's much better. So let's now focus on how we can render links and docs as well. So for that, we are actually going to again see this data folder that I have given with the starter code. But here we are now going to create a list of link messages, okay, and doc messages that we are going to actually use to render the component or the list here. Okay, so let's just write here shared links. Okay, and then we are going to actually create a list here, and also we are going to create a list of shared documents. Okay, what I'm actually going to do, you can visit this chat history, okay, that is already present inside this index.js file, and I'm just going to take this document message, okay, and this link message from here. So let's just copy these two. Okay, Now I'm going to paste it here. We need this link message above here and this document here. Now I'm just going to repeat it few times, okay, and same for the shared docs, because this is just for the demonstration purpose, okay. Now we can export these shared messages, that means shared docs and links, from this file, and then we can use it in our shared messages component. We are going to return some JSX from here, so I'm going to import that shared links, okay, that we just exported from different file in here, and now we are going to map over it, and we are going to take each element, okay, and for each shared link we are going to use this message type, okay. Here we have defined link message. Let me show it to you. So we have defined and exported this link message and doc message here, so we are going to just use that, okay. So let's write link message, and it's going to be imported from conversation and message types. And now we are actually going to pass it that element, okay, just like we did when we were rendering our conversation, okay. And now let's save this, and if you visit, you will be able to see this, okay. So now we are able to render media in links, and we can also switch between these two, okay. And we are actually going to make a few changes to this links, okay, because we do not actually want to render this menu here, okay. So we are going to make a solution for that, but for now let's just focus on rendering the docs here as well. So for that we are going to actually return again the shared docs, okay. So let me just import this shared docs from the data folder, okay, from the data folder, and then we are going to map over it. So let's just get this element, and then as I just showed you, we can use this doc message that we created earlier, okay, and we can just pass this element prop to it. We can also remove this break keyword. Now if you switch to the docs, then you will be able to see this component getting rendered here, okay. And let's now actually also make some changes to the padding here, okay. So I want this padding to be actually little bit less when we are on the links tab, okay. It's looking fine on media and docs but not on links, so we are going to reduce the padding here. So we are going to place a condition here, just like this: if the value of value, okay, the value state, if it is 1, then we want to keep the padding to 8 pixel or 1, okay. Otherwise we are going to keep it to 3 or 24 pixel. And let's now save this, and you can see now we have made these changes. So let's also talk about how we can build this start messages section, okay. Right now you can see nothing is actually rendering here, okay. So we can just use the same thing that we created here in this shared messages. So I'm just going to copy all of this code in this shared messages file, okay. Then I'm going to create another component inside this components directory, and it is going to be called start messages, okay. So let's just write start messages.js, and then I'm just going to first of all paste the shared messages code here, and then let's first of all change the name of this component from shared messages to start messages. And after that what we are going to actually do, we can change this title, okay. So let's write here start messages, and then we are also not going to need this tabs here, so I'm going to remove that. And then we are also not going to render multiple things here, so I'm also going to remove this switch, okay. So this is the part that we can actually use between the two components, okay. The common part we have just copied that over here, and now there is some error here. This value is not defined, so let's just keep the value to, so we are just going to keep the value to 3, okay. And after saving this, you can go back and refresh your app, and then there is one more thing. We need to go again inside this general app, and then we need to return a start messages component here. So let's just write this return keyword and then start messages from the components directory. And after saving this, you can also remove this break keyword, okay, because that's not needed anymore since we are returning from this point, okay. And now if you go back, then you will be able to see this header with this heading start messages. Now we just need to render the conversation part here, okay. We can actually render the same conversation that you are seeing here, okay. And then later on that messages will be different on start messages, because that will be coming from our API. So now what we are going to do here, we can just render this messages, okay, which is present inside this components and then conversation directory, you can see here. So we can just render this messages here, okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just import that messages, okay, from the conversation slash message here and use it as a component. And now after saving this, you can see that we are getting all of the messages rendered nicely, but we don't want this menu to be present. So what we are now going to do actually is we are going to define a prop here, okay, inside this messages, and we are going to call it menu, and this menu prop will be passed down to each of these messages except this timeline, okay. So let's pass this menu prop over to all the types of messages. So I'm just going to give all of these components this menu prop, and now we can visit inside this messages and we can extract that menu prop here, and based on if the value of this menu is true or false, we are going to render this component conditionally, okay. So what I'm going to say, I'm going to say if the value of menu is true, okay, then only we are going to render this message options. And similarly we can do the same for other messages as well. So let's just destructure this menu prop here, and then we can write this conditional statement, okay. We can leave this timeline, okay, there is no need to change that. Let's just also do the same to other messages. Let's save this and see what we get. So now you can see it's looking much better right now. So we have got this start messages, okay. We can also switch to this media links and docs, okay, and the menu is also gone here, and you can also switch to this docs tab. Now there is one more thing that we want to, as you can see the menu is also gone for this conversation part. So what we actually need to do is we need to go inside this conversation and index.js file, and then we are going to actually pass this menu prop to this message, okay, and we will be passing its value as true, okay. So in this case the true value will be passed down over to all of these components which are actually getting rendered on this conversation part, and so the menu will appear here. And now you can see that we have done an incredible job here, okay. We are able to switch between different tabs, and we are also able to toggle this sidebar, and that is actually pretty great. Now there is one more thing, we can also actually create a dialog box, okay, which will be opening when we click on this block and delete, which is actually pretty standard between most of the apps, okay. So let's now also get this done. So what we are actually going to do, let me show you a component, a very handy component, and it's called dialog, and you can get it directly from Material UI. So Material UI is actually going to give us this dialog component, okay, and there are various variations of it, but we are going to use this slide in alert dialog, okay. Let me just show the code to you. As you can see, the code for this is pretty neat, okay. We just need this dialog component from Material UI. We can pass it this prop of open, which is going to denote if this dialog should be open at current time or not, okay. And we are also going to use this dialog title, dialog content, and content text. These are actually other components that we can use inside dialog to render the body of it, okay. And we can also use this dialog actions, and we are going to actually render these buttons inside it. So what I'm going to do now is we are going to actually need these dialogues in this contact component only. So I'm going to create two dialogues at the top of this contact file, which is inside the components directory. So the first one is going to be block dialog, okay. So let's just create a functional component here with this name, okay. Then we are going to actually return some JSX out of it. So let's just copy and paste this JSX from the example, okay, in the Material UI. So I'm going to copy that dialog, okay. You can just write a code like this. Now there are several things that we are going to need to import from Material UI, okay. So the first one is dialog, then we also need this dialog title, dialog content, and dialog content text. So let's just also get this done. Dialog content, okay, and the next one is dialog content text, this one, and the last is dialog actions. So now we have imported these components, and we just need to define this transition, open and handle close. So now as you can see, this transition is another standalone component, okay, so which is going to actually give us this effect of slide in, okay, the transition that you are seeing there. So we are just going to get this transition from material UI, okay, then we just need this slide component, okay, so we can import it from material UI library. Now after we have defined this transition, we just need to focus upon these two things, open and handle close. When this dialog is going to be open or not, that will be managed by this contact component. So this state will be defined inside this contact component, which will be passed down as a prop to this block dialog. So it will get this value of open and handle close as prop, so we are just going to destructure that over here, okay. Then we just need to change this body text, this title, okay, and also these buttons. So I'm going to just quickly change this title to block this contact, okay, block this contact. And for the body, I'm going to use this text, okay, this will be like a warning here, okay. Then we can just change the text of this button to cancel or yes. Let's now save this, okay. And we are going to also define a similar component which will be known as delete dialog, okay. That means I want to delete the chat history. So in that case, we are going to change just a few things here, and we can also reuse these components, okay, because most of the part remains the same, and I'm going to show it to you how we can reuse our code, okay. So we will be doing a little bit of refactoring in the coming video. So let's now change this heading to delete this chat, okay. And for this body text, again I'm going to give this warning text here, are you sure you want to delete this chat, okay, something like this. And then you can leave these buttons, okay, for cancel and yes. And now we just need to use these delete dialog and block dialog inside this contact component. So the first thing that we are going to actually do here is, okay, we need to define the state to manage whether this dialog is open or closed at a certain time. So let's write this open block and set open block, okay. Then we are going to use this use state hook from react, and initially the value of open block is going to be false. And similarly, we are also going to define open delete and set open delete, okay. And now we are actually going to define handle close functions here. So the first one is going to be handle close block, and this is actually just going to set the value of open block to false. So what we are going to do, we are going to call this set open block and pass it this value of false. And similarly, we can also define handle close delete, okay. We can also change this to set open delete, so it is going to update the value of open delete to false. And now we just need to implement on click functionality on this block and delete, okay. So what we are going to do, we are going to write on click. So we are going to tap into this event on click. So whenever this button will be clicked, we are again going to update the value of open block. And as you can already guess, we are just going to call this set open block and pass it a value of true. And similarly, we can also do the same thing here for this delete. We can call set open delete, which is going to update the value of open delete to true. And now we are pretty much done. The only thing that is left to do is to actually render the dialog conditionally. So what we are going to do, we are going to check if the value of open block, if it is true, then we are going to render the component that we created above, block dialog, and we need to pass it two props. The first one is going to be open, okay, which is going to denote whether the block dialog is open or not at the certain time, and that is actually managed by this open block, okay. This is the state that we are maintaining for it. And we are also going to need to pass this handle close, okay, which is a function that will be executed when on close is fired. So here we can pass handle close block. And similarly, we can also render another component here, Okay, this will also be rendered conditionally, so we just need to change the text here to delete instead of block. Okay, now I'm going to save and format this code, and now you can visit your chat app. Okay, and you can also refresh it. Now if I click on this block, then you are able to see that we get this nice dialog box with transition effect. Okay, and similarly we are also getting this delete warning. Okay, so this is it for this video. Now in the next one we are going to explore how we can render this group calling and settings feature. Okay, we are also going to build our profile section in the next video. I hope you find this video informative. If yes, then please make sure to like this video and also subscribe to this channel, and you can also share this video or comment down so that this content is going to reach more people like you. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.